What's up, Infected, and welcome to the Kwarenteen. Today I'm going to be taking a look at a game by the name of Martians, a story of civilization, or as I like to call it, Matt Damon the board game. So what is Martians, a story of civilization? Well, Martians is a board game where you and several other families are doing like a low sci-fi colony on Mars, and all of it's within the realm of feasibility and kind of grounded in science. You have your spacesuit, and if you've seen The Martian, it's kind of the same kind of feel, but instead it's on a larger scope where you have several families that are all trying to process solar energy and the wind energy, and you're trying to accomplish certain missions and then also not die throughout the game. But mechanically, the game is a worker placement game, but with a twist, where not only do you have you're placing your workers, you have time units that you're also having to use while placing your workers. And on top of that, you have to fight disease and hunger, and you have to earn money to do all kinds of other things. But on top of everything, you also have a goal to complete, whether it's set up plantations on the colony so you can grow crops, or whether you're trying to find microbial life or something like that. So that's kind of how the game works. So let's go over to the overview. In a game of The Martians is played over a span of 4 cycles. Each cycle has up to 4 rounds, and then each round each player will be taking a single turn using their workers and 3 time units. Now all of this is going to sounds probably a little confusing, so let's break it down a little bit. On the first round of each cycle, you're going to do whatever it says. You have round 1, 2, 3, and 4. So round 1, you're going to draw one of the crisis cards. Now for each cycle, you're going to have 2 crisis cards, and so you're going to draw out of that. So in this case, we're going to draw the 1 cycle card, or the 1 crisis card. You're going to deal with whatever it says on it, and that's going to stay face up for the remainder of the round because a lot of them have lasting effects. Then you're going to look here and see that it shows the weather. Now the first round, the weather is always stable because NASA or whatever your space agency is has done enough pre-planning, so your weather's always going to be nice. But after the first round, you're always going to draw whatever it shows here. Then you're going to go ahead and get electricity due to, from whatever means that you have, whether it be solar panels or whether you have wind energy. Now in the beginning of the game, you're going to have energy crystals that you're going to have available to you. Now if you're playing a co-op game, you will have a pool, and if you're playing a semi-co-op game, you're going to have your own, but you can borrow and take each other's if each other will allow it. You're also going to start out with a certain number of materials. So whoever's turn it is, whoever's going to go first, is going to take their 3 workers. Now keep in mind you have 3 workers and you have 3 time units. So if you look a little closer on the board, so if we look here, I can place a worker here, and by placing the 1 worker, I can spend an energy, a regolith, a materials, and I'll be able to perform whatever action is over here, getting 3 victory points, which are the smiley faces. Now, keeping in mind, you have 3 time units. So by placing 1 worker here, I can spend all 3 of my time units doing all 3 of these actions, provided, of course, I can pay for them. Now, another thing that you can do on your turn, at the expense of a single time unit, is you can pull back all of your workers, which makes for a very interesting kind of resource management. Because do you place 1 worker out and do 1 action here, and then another worker to do an action here, and then another worker to do a single action there, spending all 3 of your time units just to have to use a single time unit to pull all of them back? Or do you spend 1 worker here and use all 3 of your time units in order to make it a little more efficient with your workers, and have to waste a time unit, and have to wait a little longer till you have to waste a time unit? Now, when you are done taking all 3 of your time units, you will take 1 of your chips here and you will place it in the round to show that you are finished with your turn, and then the rest of the players will continue to do the same thing. At the end of each round, the first player is going to rotate, as you see, here, and you're going to move down to the next stage, and you're going to keep doing this. Once you've completed all of the rounds and you've placed all of your workers here, you are done with the cycle, and you're going to go on to cycle 2. Now, if you'll notice, there are 4 rounds, but I only held up 3 tokens. And the reason for this is because one of the tokens are going to be set off to the side, and you have to accomplish certain in-game tasks, such as healing everybody or having more babies, in order to get another family on Mars, giving you a whole other action that you can take, or a whole other round that you get to take during the game. Now, several of the locations have unique abilities that you're able to do, such as mining. You can take the rover here, and you can either collect everything that's on a location with a couple restrictions that are listed in the rules. You can take whatever's under it, and then you can move it adjacent, uncovering everything that is around it. Or you can leave this one, move it, collect what's on its location, and then of course still uncover everything. So this is going to be moving around this way, slowly uncovering the surface of Mars and trying to mine, whether it be dirty ice or the regolith soil. Now, you're not going to be alone in this task, because you're going to be able to hire several people to work for you and improve the actions that you can take and make them a little bit better and a little bit more efficient, because this is a game about efficiency. But be careful, because if at the end of a cycle, if you have not cleared out all of the food, the sickness, and filled each location with oxygen, you're going to face severe penalties. Of course, oxygen being the most devastating, where you lose an entire round marker to the skull side, showing that that family is now dead, and you lose an entire round per cycle. At the end of the 4th cycle, whoever has the most victory points on this chart is declared the winner. Or if you are playing a cooperative game, you're just trying to beat your previous score and not die. There are several of the variants, and there's lots of other rules I have not covered, such as you have crops in order to grow food. You have these tokens here to put out on the board to show that you have built you maybe built wind turbines here, or maybe you built solar energy here, and you're going to try to bank on the way the weather is going to go. And there's several other locations on the board, but that's the gist of how you play Martians, A Story of Civilization. Alright, Martians, A Story of Civilization. Well, to put simply, I was super excited for this game. When I saw it on Kickstarter, I immediately backed it. I even backed it before, because I don't remember if the game came out before or after The Martian came out, but me being a big sci-fi nerd like I am, and I love science and space, it just fascinates me. This game was surely it was going to be a huge hit. I was going to love this game. And then I saw The Martian, and now I just call it Matt Damon the game. And of course there's the Martian jokes, and I'm gonna science the shit out of this, and I'm technically a space pirate, and we make jokes like that throughout the whole game. And when I first played the game, I loved it. The game was so brutally difficult, and it was so much fun, and very thematic. And then of course you have the dull side of the board, which you saw here, but then there's a more vibrant, more like a comic booky look to Mars, where everything's a lot more red and a lot more vibrant. But it's also a tall map, which whoever thought that was a good idea needs to be beaten to death, because the board that I showed in the review is much easier to use. And then you have that big stack of missions, and I was so excited, and I was so happy, I was just giddy. And then during one game, I noticed one thing. Now, the way you win the game is you have to have all of your living quarters clear of all disease, all food, and they have to have oxygen. And you have to have completed whatever objective you're trying to play. And after about 3 or 4 games of it, I realized that the game almost seemed like it was impossible, but it wasn't. It just seemed next to impossible. When I say it wasn't, I don't know that for sure, and I'll get to it, because I had not won. I hadn't even come close to winning. But then it occurred to me, I was like, well, the penalty that you get for not curing disease and not curing hunger, to cure hunger, all it is you spend 2 space cash and you get your guy back. Because if you don't have hunger and you don't cure hunger, you don't cure disease, you're gonna lose 1 worker each. So it costs 2 space cash to get your guy back for hunger, and then it costs 1 time unit to get your guy back from sickness. That happens once a cycle, so it's not a big deal. And that's it. So it started to occur to me, okay, well, you got 1 time unit and 2 space cash once a cycle. Okay, that sucks. Or in order to get food, you have to get 2 energy, which energy in this game is the life essence of the game. If you don't have energy in this game, you're screwed. Just pack it up. So you have to spend at least 2 energy, sometimes 1 energy, but either way, plus water, which you get water by spending at least 1 time unit mining the Martian surface to get your dirty ice, and then you have to go and spend an energy and a material. No, you have to spend energy to turn that into water. And so you wind up spending like 2 and 3, sometimes even 4 energy to get 1 water, which then you also have to use more to get food. So it's not efficient. It is more efficient to just ignore it and spend 2 space cash, which is pretty simple to get. Same thing goes with medicine. With medicine, to get medicine, you need an energy, a materials, and a water. We've already went over it takes like 2 or 3 sometimes in order to actions just to get water. Then you have to spend actions in the landing pad in order to get materials. Then you have to spend another action to turn that into 1 medicine. So that is a minimum of 3 actions, or once per cycle you can lose a single time unit. Because at the end of each cycle, any previous tokens that you had that were on those are wiped off, and it just resets. The only time you have to worry about curing everything is the last round of the game, or the last cycle of the game. So the rest of the game consists of stockpile enough stuff so you can cure the last cycle, and then just eat the consequences, because it's way more efficient. Now, when I figured this out, I have a 100% win rate with this game. Every single mission, 100% win rate. There is a winning strategy that will win you the game every time. Your first cycle, you need to dedicate getting more babies. And because your first cycle, you're gonna cure it. It's pretty simple. You're gonna fix everything. You're gonna get a population boom. And as long as you did the in vitro or whatever it is, you're going to get another baby, and immediately, round 2 or 3, I think it is, you're just going to get your 4th round. So you're going to have like 2 rounds that you're going to get all 4 of your people. You've ignored sickness and hunger, you've just eaten the consequences, and then you concentrate on completing your objective. Last round of the game, you make sure you have everything you needed in order to cure all the stuff, and you win. Once I figured that out, I cannot play this game anymore because it's not fun. There's no challenge anymore, and that is very depressing because I wanted to love this game. It did everything right. The theme of it was so cool. Everything about the game was awesome. There's another major flaw that I'll get to, but everything was just really cool and I loved it, everything about it. But then once I figured that out, I can't play the game anymore. There's no challenge. And that is what brings the game down to really bad, to be completely honest, and it makes me really sad. Now, the other big problem that we had with the game, which I had this in the beginning, but it kind of exacerbated the problem once I realized that the game was incredibly simple, is worker placement. If we're competing, I can screw you out of a location, and I'm like, I'm gonna go here, and ha ha ha. But there's always enough places for everybody to go in each location. There's never an area that there's only like 1 spot that somebody has to go to. You can't lock somebody out of an area because you can't have 2 people in the same location. You have to spread them out, and there's always going to be enough room for everybody to place a person, and that's dumb. It ruins a big portion of what makes worker placement games so good. And especially with this, if you're gonna play competitive, like, there's no reason to. Now, I did try this numerous times, competitive, cooperatively, and semi-competitive, or semi-cooperative. And semi-cooperative does seem like that's how the game was designed, and then everything else was kind of tacked onto it. But it doesn't change the fact that the game, once you understand that, like, once it occurs to you, which it's going to, it's once you realize that the penalties are not that harsh, it winds up not really being that good of a game. There's much better games that do this, just the theme is really good. So overall, I cannot recommend Martian: A Story of Civilization due to a major design flaw, which I'm thinking about holding on to it instead of selling it like I usually do, in hopes that they come out with maybe a second edition rulebook or an expansion that fixes it or something, because I want to love everything about this game. Now, another thing that did kind of irk me is I spoke with the developer. I was on Board Game Geek and I was explaining the situation, and a lot of people have been sharing my same concerns with the game. Now, where the problem that I had was the response that the designer gave me was, well, we'd rather play thematically. And, well, that's awesome, but that doesn't change the fact that there is a fatal design flaw in the game. And that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Now, I can already hear that people who like the game and are watching it are like, well, don't clear out the food and the disease tokens at the end of each round and just let them pile up. And I tried that, and I don't know if the game is even possible at that, because even with my 100% win rate strategy, it's still going to be a tight game. There's not a lot of room for error. The only thing that can happen in mine that can screw you over is there's a single event that may pop up, and if it does, you'll just lose. There's nothing you can do about it. Because outside of that fatal design flaw, it is a very tight game. There's not a lot of room for error, such as colonizing Mars would be. It would be a very tight thing. If something screwed up, there's a good chance the entire mission's gonna fail. And so you do get that feeling. So, you know, if you pull that one event, you just, well, dang it, and reset the game, because there's nothing you can do at that point. So if you do just not deal with you keep them out there and just let them pile up, so you're gonna have to deal with them, I don't know if the game is possible at that point, to be 100% honest. Like I said, I can't recommend Martians: A Story of Civilization, unfortunately, and I really want to. And if this game especially, if it comes out with an expansion or a second edition rulebook or something, I will definitely probably do another review on it if it changes my mind. Anyways, that is my review for Martians: A Story of Civilization, aka Matt Damon the game. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys next time in the Quarantine.